So welcome to Discover Your Sweet Spot, how balanced blood sugar holds the keys to optimal weight, unstoppable energy, and a long, healthy life. And isn't that what all of us want, right? Does anybody not want to be at their optimal weight? Does anybody not want energy? You want to feel tired? Does anybody want a short and unhealthy life, right? So it's obvious we all want that, but we don't all know how to get it. We're not always aware of what it means to do the activities to keep us in that balance. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I have a packed presentation, as I usually do. I try to get them shorter, but there's so much I want to say, and I don't want to leave anything out. So it'll go like an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how many questions. So stay to the end for questions if you want questions answered. But also at the end, I have a very special gift that I'm going to be giving you to help you through these periods, okay? To help support your immune system, to help support your health in general, especially needed at this time. So it was about 35 years ago. I was on an airplane. I reached into my backpack to grab my water, and I found this book sitting in my backpack that I'd never seen before. I pulled it out, read the title, and it was called Starving for Attention. I was on my way back from visiting my family in New York, and just a few months before, I had undertaken a fast for health reasons, and I was feeling phenomenal. My health was better than it had ever been in my entire life, and I was overjoyed with my new diet that I took on after the fasting and with how I was feeling, and I wanted to share it with the world. And I was actually getting ready to share it with the world. I was getting ready to quit my job and go back to school and, become a doctor of natural medicine so that I could help people the way I'd been helped. So I pulled out this book and I thought, they think I'm anorexic. That's why they think I'm making the choices that I made. Yeah, I was thin. I was thinner than I had been the last time I saw my family. I lost about 23 pounds during the fast, and it took a while to gain it back, but I did. And they were not happy with the new me, because the new me wasn't sitting around and eating chips and drinking alcohol and, just dealing with the way things were. I was happy with the new me, and I knew I didn't want to go back to the old me. As I watched their shape and their attitude, and I wanted so much to be able to reach them and to be able to help them to make the changes and to see what I'd done wasn't some crazy thing. I had so much energy and clarity that I knew I had to do this. I knew I had to quit my job, and I knew I had to learn this stuff and teach people. I was hungry. I was hungry for good food because I realized in going through the process with the fasting that I had not been nourished well my whole life. But I was hungry for information, and I wanted to understand, how did the fasting really affect me, and why did I feel so good now, and how can I keep it that way? How does my body work, and how can I teach other people about how their bodies work so that they can have the same results as me? Not everybody's going to do a 28-day water fast like I did. It's not practical, and for some people it's not advisable. But how could I learn strategies to help you, to wherever you are, to get this unstoppable energy that I feel? And I felt it back then when I was almost 30 years old. So I'm here today to share with you more of those strategies that I learned, and how you can learn to put your diet, your lifestyle, not so much on what diet am I following this week, but what is that personalized plan that works for me? And when people ask me what kind of diet I'm on, I say, I'm on the Rita Marie diet. And you should be on the Kim diet, and you should be on the Joanne diet, and you should be on the Frank diet and the Joe diet. And for each person, there is a specific set of things that you should be doing. Now, there's an overall over-encompassing set of the good stuff, and there's an overall thing of the bad stuff that we should kind of move away from because they damage us. But there's a lot of gray area in there. And when you learn to balance yourself according to your diet and get rid of the gray area, that's when things just take off for you. So I'm looking forward to sharing. I have a slide presentation. I'll be sharing slides. I have a lot of information on there, and I think that it visually helps you to stay connected. And like I said, stay to the end because I have a really nice document. It's basically a swap chart, not a pop tart. I'll tell you more about it when we get there. So we're here for Discover Your Sweet Spot, how balanced blood sugar holds the key to optimal weight, unstoppable energy, and a long and healthy life. And there's a lot of reasons that get people come to my webinars. There's a lot of reasons you might be here. It might be because you are dealing with some sort of diagnosis that you don't like, some sort of disease process, or you're scared of it because of family members having it. Or maybe you're just tired and you want to get your energy back, or you have extra around the middle and you've been trying a lot of things, but nothing seems to be really keeping it off permanently. I hear a lot of people say, I'm on the keto diet and I still have this belly. Why? Or I'm doing a plant-based diet. And we're going to talk about why and why some of those diets may not be working for you at this particular point in time. But maybe you're just here because you want to experience energy and vitality and you're motivated to just keep getting better. And over the last few days, as we've done these presentations, that's what a few people have said. I feel good. I just want to always feel better and I always learn. So whatever the reason is, you've come to the right place. And I'm going to walk you through some strategies that you can put into place to fine tune whatever good you're doing, to kind of let go of whatever not so good you're doing, and to come into what I call your sweet spot. And I'll talk more about what that exactly is, but it's your place of balance, metabolic balance. I've had the experience of seeing what I'm teaching work for people, the magic of how it transforms and reverses a lot of disease processes. And with the help of their doctor, lots of folks have been able to get off medications. I've seen the damage that happens when people don't follow my advice, in particular my own family members. A lot of people have been asking me throughout this educational process. So this is the second to the last of an educational training system that we put together absolutely free, that you're welcome to go through again and again until we take it down at the end of the month. But it consisted of 5 videos that I made in advance that are just very powerful. And I encourage you, if you haven't watched them, to watch them. There were some handouts, some PDF documents, and then this, and then we still have to come a workshop, which we'll get to, and we'll share more details about that over the next few days. And a lot of people have been asking me, but this is all great information, but I just don't trust myself to do it. I don't have, enough information, and I don't have the stamina, the willpower to follow through. And what do I do next? And so I'm going to share with you a very important set of guidelines that you can follow and ways that you can get our support, because it's super important. So I'll do that about halfway through, and then we'll go back. We're going to start with going through what we came here for, which is what I put on the list of the page where you registered. And then we're going to tell you about how you can get further support. And then I'm going to go into the details. I'm going to go into the details of how do you do a specific diet, the diet and lifestyle that's worked for me, which has been a combination of intermittent fasting, some shorter fasts, combination of that with a ketogenic type plant-based diet. And it's kept me in this amazing health. I'm going to be 64 next month. Hard to believe. I feel like I am 25. I feel like, not how I felt like I was 25. I feel like I should have felt when I was 25 because it wasn't that great. So I'll tell you all about that in a moment. So there's 6 different points that I want to make, and I'm going to go run through them briefly, tell you what we're going to be covering, and then we'll go back and cover them in more detail. So what does it really mean to be in your metabolic sweet spot, and how do you test yourself at home very inexpensively so that you can personalize your diet for your individual needs? I'm also going to talk to you about some lab tests that most doctors, so your doctor may not know about, and how to use them to discover your sweet spot and also detect underlying imbalances that could cost you lots of health challenges if left unchecked. We're also going to talk about some top strategies, not just diet, but other lifestyle strategies that will help you to get your energy back and help the belly fat and help you stay in your sweet spot. And guess what? You don't even have to give up chocolate to get there. I'm also going to talk about how to avoid the hazards of a keto plant-based or paleo diet that can just leave you tired, exhausted, and really at risk for long-term health issues if you don't do them right. And I'm going to talk about a few immediate relief strategies that I use and that I teach my patients and clients and folks in my groups to do if you're feeling like, if you get out of your sweet spot, if you've learned to measure, if you're feeling like exhausted and you know you need to keep going because you have a big meeting coming up or your brain is not working so well, whatever those are, immediate relief techniques that you can do and get some energy and stamina and clarity back within 30 minutes. And one of them is what we just did at the beginning, which was the HeartMath. And then I'm going to talk to you about how do you do a 30-day metabolic reset? How do you reset your metabolism so that you can finally get rid of that waistline or get your energy back and get your brain power, your brain fog to be gone, and also to mental clarity and memory and just protection from long-term illness. So after my fast, I vowed to stay off sugar and alcohol and all the processed food that I'd been eating beforehand. And I started following a whole foods plant-based diet, a pretty simple whole foods plant-based diet. Most of it was uncooked. And in fact, for the first 3 to 4 months after my fast, probably all of it was uncooked. And I was doing great. I was feeling great. But as time went on, you know, I was like feeling great most of the time. And so I had to do some tweaks. Did it have to be as much raw? Could I add more vegetables? What fruits were good? Over and over, I tweaked my diet. And I went back to school. I left my job at that time after my fast, and I went back to become a chiropractor, doctor of chiropractic. And then I got a master's in nutrition. And then a little bit later, went on for acupuncture and herbal medicine. And then HeartMath, I discovered HeartMath. And I started putting all of this into my bag of tricks as I worked with people. But what I noticed was that even in people who were not diagnosed with diabetes or insulin resistance, they were having blood sugar issues. And these blood sugar issues were affecting their ability to heal their thyroid, heal their gut, heal their neurotransmitter imbalances that led to mood disorders, and heal a plethora of other hormonal imbalances. And so I started working with people on testing their blood sugar. And I had everybody test their blood sugar, got a meter, and started testing their blood sugar. And what happened was I was surprised, actually, at how different the results were, how different foods affect different people in very, very different ways. In other words, one person could eat, for example, a smoothie with 6 bananas in it, and the sugar would barely go up. And another person would have half a cup of blueberries and their sugar would go up. So it was like, what's going on here? So I started to work with them to help them bring their sugar, their diet, lifestyle, and balance so that they stayed in what I called their sweet spot, that state of balance. And wow, people started to get really, really well. They got their sex drives back. Their thyroid started to balance. Their brain fog disappeared. Their energy got better. And they started to drop weight even after they'd been stuck at the same weight for a long time. So I'm here to talk to you about that. What I discovered for me was that my sweet spot is keeping my blood sugar between my high 60s and low 70s. The typical norm is considered to be like in the 80s, right? Or 80s to 90s even with Western medicine, but we in functional medicine think 80s is better. But I just feel best that way. I feel most clear. My cravings go away. I don't gain weight. I just feel really good at that. But that's not necessarily your sweet spot. So we have to figure out what your sweet spot is and then figure out what do you have to do to keep yourself there. I figured out what I have to do is intermittent fasting. I fast anywhere from, on most days, 16 hours, 14 to 16 to 18 some days, but a minimum of 12 hours a day. And I do periodic fasts, and I eat a whole foods plant-based keto type diet with no oil, actually. So, and I have a great time. I really enjoy my food. Many of you have seen me post beautiful pictures of it. I have some pictures of some of it later. I don't want you to feel like you're going to be deprived by doing a diet that keeps you in your sweet spot. And we'll talk more about the meters in a little bit. It's a huge myth that's believed in medicine that only people with diabetes or insulin resistance have to be measuring their blood sugar and know what it is. It's totally not true. And the reason is that this condition called insulin resistance, which develops as a result of the body needing a lot of insulin because the diet is loaded with things that get quickly converted to glucose. The job of insulin, secreted by your pancreas, by the way, is to take that insulin and escort it into the cells. But after a while of having high levels of insulin, the cells get damaged. The cells get resistant. They put their hands over their ears and say, enough, no more. And they stop reading the signal of insulin. And so the blood sugar starts to rise and creep up. Not necessarily first thing in the morning when the doctors are testing it on your annual physical, but throughout the day. And I'm going to teach you how to find that sweet spot and how you can know if you're getting out of it and what causes it. The problem is with this insulin resistance on this continuum is over here, the blue, the light blue, the tealish blue. It's a diagnosable condition, right? It's got, certain parameters of blood sugar over 100, but less than 120. And then it can lead to what's called metabolic syndrome, which is when it's been happening for a while, your lipids get out of balance, cholesterol goes up, triglycerides go up, blood pressure goes up. And eventually it could lead to diabetes. It doesn't have to, and still have it be very damaging to the body. This is all within the realm of Western medicine we can measure. This is the area where most people sit for decades, causing damage to their system, and they don't ever necessarily get here, but there's a lot of damage, or they finally get here, but they get way out here after there's been a lot of damage. And so these are stages that happen sometimes when we're little kids and we're just running around eating our chocolate chip cookies and our lollipops and our insulin levels go high. We don't really have symptoms until we start to get reactive hypoglycemia, that insulin gets so high that the blood sugar drops dramatically and we're like hyperactive, hyper irritable and all that. Probably a lot of hyperactivity in kids comes from that. And then we have pre-insulin resistance where fasting blood sugar is perfectly normal, but what's happening is the sugar's going way up after meals and then coming down. And this is the place where I usually catch people. I usually work with them starting here, but I work with a lot of folks who already have diagnosed diabetes, and they do tremendously well. So this is what I want to help you to determine. Are you in the pre-insulin resistant stage? And what we want to do is get you in your sweet spot, which is that balance of blood sugar, and the results of your combination of multiple lifestyle factors overlap to put you right in the middle. And we're going to share with you what those factors are so you can start working on them. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the lab tests your doctors may not know about and how that you can use them to discover where your imbalances lie. And you can get these tests done by a doctor. You just go to the office and say, hey, doc, when you do my annual blood work or not anytime, can you run these tests? And many that are very rooted in Western medicine will say, no, you're not diabetic. You don't need these tests. But many will actually do them. And they're in the US, there's a direct access lab companies that you can run them through. Is it absolutely necessary to get these done in order for you to work on getting yourself in your sweet spot? Absolutely not. Don't let these not being able to get these tests easily deter you from putting into practice a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about here. So insulin, fasting insulin. We already talked that insulin is that hormone that takes the sugar out of the blood and puts it into the cells where they can make energy. The range consistently in Western medicine is somewhere like between 2 and 18. In my opinion, and in the opinion of other functional medicine docs, people who are looking for optimal, that's not a good range. The ideal range is more like 2 to 5, but ideally we like to see people in the 2 to 3 range. Okay. If you're fasting insulin and you test it and it's 18, 20, 15, 12, and the doctor says you're fine, understand that you're not really fine. There's a lot of stuff going on. Insulin isn't required when you're fasting, only a little tiny bit for baseline, right? Insulin is needed after you eat. And yeah, we expect it to go up after eating, obviously. But if it's high fasting, you've got some damage going on and you need to know about that. Hemoglobin A1C is a percentage of your red blood cells that are coated with sugar. Sugar-coated red blood cells can damage blood vessel linings. Damaged blood vessel linings can lead to a collection of plaque that builds up and can lead to heart attack or stroke. Not good, right? So we want to know what our hemoglobin A1C was, and we want to know how to keep that hemoglobin A1C in an ideal range. Ideally 4.5 to 5. If it goes up to 5.2, I'm still celebrating when it's come down from higher levels, but above 5.6 is actually considered clinically diagnosable as insulin resistance. So we want to keep it in that tight range. And it gives us an estimate of how high the blood sugar is on average over the last 3 months. So for example, a hemoglobin A1C of 5 means that your average blood glucose over the last 3 months was somewhere in the 90s, like 98-ish. right? That's pretty good. If it goes up to 5.8 or 5.7-ish, it's up to 119, 120, which means that while your fasting, which is going to be much lower, is bringing it down, your after eating is bringing it up. And so you're probably getting some pretty high peaks. And when we look at the next slide, we'll see that measuring our glucose postprandial meaning after eating, you can measure your glucose and the optimal peak is actually 110. So let me explain what that means. When you start out before a meal and you measure your glucose, it's generally going to be at the lowest point. So you measure it before the meal and then you measure it at intervals after the meal until you start to see it come down. And what you'll see is you eat the meal and then you see it go up and up and up and up. And eventually it comes down again, down, 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 down. The key number is that peak. A lot of doctors will tell their diabetic patients, well, go ahead and I just want you to go ahead and let's say, for example, measure it before your meal and then measure it 2 hours after. And as long as it's not more than 140 at 2 hours, you're okay. That's wrong. That's bad advice. That's dangerous advice because at 140, you're already causing a lot of the damages that we see in people who have diabetes. All right. And we'll look at some of those numbers later. But those are not good, like damage to the peripheral nerves, damage to the eyes, damage to the kidneys, damage to the vasculature. So we want to keep it so that that highest point it goes is 110. If you're listening to the doc who says 140 at 2 hours, it's probably gone way up higher than that. All right. So optimal peak is 110. Now, if you're already diabetic and your fasting glucose is in the 120s, then, you know, that obviously you're looking for something different. And we teach this. I don't have time to teach that all today. It's like it's a video in our Sweet Spot course where we teach you how to look at your numbers, how to interpret them. If you are diabetic, where are you starting and how much, you know, your leeway you have. So if it goes up 25 points or more, for example, after a meal, then you're probably getting into trouble range. And what we find is as people follow the process and go through this metabolic reset I'm going to tell you about in a moment, what happens is they see their fasting glucoses come down and they get much better. So it's exciting. It's exciting to have control. And by the end of this presentation, I want you to walk away feeling like you have choices and that your choices impact your health and that you have a lot more influence over what's happening in your body than you ever believed possible. So these are the 3 tests that I think are really excellent for predicting your condition. All right. So next we're going to talk about what else besides food, because a lot of people say to me, but I'm eating a great diet, my diet this and my diet that, but I'm still feeling this way or that way, or my sugars are still high, or my blood pressure is still high, whatever. So it's more than just diet. So we have to focus on lifestyle factors. And we're going to be going through with you what those lifestyle factors are. All right. Are you ready? All right. So the lifestyle factors, obviously diet. This is what I think is a better pyramid than what you're seeing out there. Hydration is so critical and so many people are dehydrated. You can't be healthy without being hydrated. Pure, healthy water, half your body weight in fluid ounces every day. Then we have greens, and there's a variety of greens, and some people tolerate some better than others, but those are loaded with your antioxidants. Then you have your rainbow vegetables and fruits. This is where the personalization comes in. This is where having a glucose meter that you can test your sugars on, and you can know which of the foods that are good foods are not good for me right now, which are the ones that are throwing me out of my sweet spot and creating imbalance that could cause disease. So we want to focus on the food, and we'll teach you all about that. And we have a longer presentation on that after, towards the middle part of the presentation. So I'm trying to lay this out in sequential order. Consistent movement is another one. And it doesn't mean you have to spend hours a day at the gym. It doesn't mean you have to be a triathlete or a marathon runner, but getting movement every day. And every day you can have, it could be just easy movement, like dancing to your favorite music. It could be burst training, which is 30-second intervals spread out throughout the day of really intense, and then you relax. And those have been found to help the blood sugar get balanced much better. So all kinds of movement. Just find something you love to do and start moving every day. Next, we have the stress management. And went through this at the beginning. The power of appreciation is so important. And I love people to take this heart math that I taught you at the beginning and do it first thing and the last thing at night. Do it before each meal. Do it throughout the day to just bring yourself down. Do it whenever you feel like you're starting to get stressed. And so that's important. But there's other things. Other mindfulness practices are good too. Meditation. I've never been a good meditator. I do now, but I do it shorter periods of time because I was taught you had to do it for an hour and you had to do it twice a day and you couldn't eat it too close to meals or bedtime. And I couldn't do it. I had little kids. I couldn't do it. And then I felt more stressed out about trying to do this stress management technique. When I found HeartMath, I was so excited that I could do it in short intervals throughout the day. And it's made all the difference in the world for me. But HeartMath, meditation, yoga, tapping, the work from Byron Katie, there's a number of things that you could be doing. But the idea is to get you out of the sympathetic go-go into parasympathetic and where your healing happens. The other thing that's super important is sleep. You know, there's a reason for us going to sleep, and the reason is for us to be healing throughout the night. Right? We have to be able to shut down so the brain can replenish, so the liver can be active to detoxify whatever came in throughout the day, so your growth hormone can help you to burn away fat and store away the lean and make good of the exercise you did that day. All of these things need to happen, and you getting a good night's sleep is critical. Every time you have a bad night's sleep, the next day you have insulin resistance. Now, if that's just an occasional up with a sick kid or, up studying for a test, but then you go back and sleep, it's just that one day. And you have to be extra careful to eat to stay in your sweet spot that next day, or otherwise you're going to see weird readings. So sleep is super important. We have to learn how to balance that. And you have to, get some help sometimes in figuring out why you're not sleeping. And finally, the optimal timings and rhythms. It's so critical. What you eat is important, but when you eat is super important as well. And this is finally coming into mainstream with this whole obsession with intermittent fasting. When I first started teaching intermittent fasting almost 10 years ago with our first Sweet Spot program, which was then called Before Be Gone, some of you may have been in there with me, what I found was that nobody ever heard of it before. So we started looking at how can we incorporate this, the benefits of fasting. We went through it in a lot of detail on video 4 of our series, but, better metabolism, improvement in glucose and insulin levels, better growth hormone, on and on and on. Lots and lots of benefits of fasting, which you can watch that video and find out more. But that intermittent fasting is the period where we heal. Feeding should be shorter, and feeding is the period where we nourish. We have to do both. We can't just do one or the other. But it's really important to get those rhythms down, to have at least 12 hours between your last meal and your first meal, to spread your meals out 4 to 6 hours. There are exceptions. Yeah, there's the skinny people, the little kids that have high metabolic rates, but we can still do meal spacing. Insulin, our friend insulin, lovely to get the sugar out of the cells and out of the blood and into the cells, but it's a fat storage hormone. So if you're finding that you're eating good food, but you're not losing weight, it could be just the timing. So there's all these things that play in to making sure that you do it right. All right. So let's move into the keto stuff. Like, what are the hazards of keto and plant-based and paleo that you can avoid if you do it right? And when I say the hazards of keto, and we'll talk about the dark side of keto, I mean the butter and bacon version of keto that is most often taught. Eat lots of butter, eat lots of bacon. You see the pictures, bacon cheeseburgers without the bun, with lettuce as the bun. There, that's a good thing. But it's still bacon and cheeseburgers and, and burgers and fries. Well, they don't do fries, but it's not good stuff for you. It's too high in a lot of the animal fats and the animal protein. And that gives you an increased risk of inflammation because animal fat is high in arachidonic acid, which is an inflammatory omega-6. Also, the excess protein from those animal foods is actually going to put a stress on your kidneys and your bones because they're acid forming, and that leaches minerals from your bones and causes problems with the kidneys having to deal with them. Not enough vegetables in this, the keto diet done bacon and butter and oil and all that. it's just not enough vegetables. So not enough fiber, and we know all the benefits of fiber, and not enough antioxidants, which are these amazing phytochemicals from the foods, in addition to vitamins and minerals that support us in being healthy. It's also excess protein. When we eat too much protein, it's imbalance, and imbalances the microbiome. And what people don't realize is that, when you're eating a ketogenic type plan, when you're eating in a way that burns fat, you're actually needing less protein. I heard somebody today say, yesterday, a doctor was saying, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 grams of protein on a true ketogenic diet, it would be ideal, a fasting mimicking type diet. And then it causes electrolyte imbalances, because as you lose fluid from the fat cells, from the fat storage, you're losing a lot of the electrolytes. So you can lead to things like, cardiac arrhythmias and muscle cramps and the like. So there's a lot of downsides if you do it that way. So I would caution people against doing it. Short term, it can provide great benefits in terms of weight loss, but long term, I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. And we've never really seen big populations of people do this kind of diet for long periods of time. But plant-based diets can have problems too, if it's done in a lot of the ways people do. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are plant-based. Potato chips are plant-based. There's a lot of things that are plant-based that are not good for you, that are high in sugar, high in starch. And so we have to look at, just because somebody says, oh, but I'm on a plant-based diet, I'm healthy, doesn't mean they're healthy. And it might be for you. And maybe the reason you're not losing weight on a plant-based diet, or you're not feeling better on a plant-based diet, is because you have too much of these foods that don't agree with your physiology. So there's a lot of foods we can put in, but which of these is going to be great for you? Some people don't tolerate garlic because their sulfur metabolism is broken. Some people don't tolerate grains. Some people don't tolerate sweet fruits, but they tolerate other fruits. It's all a matter of finding your sweet spot, finding what foods actually help you to be healthy. And that's what's really important. And that's why I think measuring is so, so important. So what is some immediate relief methods? Well, I talked to you before, breathing and appreciation. Just focus on your heart, close your eyes, or not if you're driving. Don't even touch your heart if you're not. You can do it driving, and you just focus on your breath and appreciation. It's harder to let your shoulders drop, but you still can do it. I do it. Stuck in traffic. Focus on the exhale. That's a great relief strategy, as is our greens. So if you're traveling and you're feeling like you got to go into a meeting, carry packets of greens or little Ziploc baggies with greens in them, green powders. Lots of great green powders on the market these days. And they give you a boost. They give you all that antioxidant support and a little bit of protein, and the green, the chlorophyll, it all just give you that boost. The other thing is burst exercise. I show you a little picture of my stair stepper, which I have right down here by my desk. And you could just get on and do 30 seconds of quick heart rate elevating exercise all out, and then you stop, right? That can give you a great boost. The other thing is my favorite chocolate bonbons that I make. And those bonbons have coconut and raw cacao, and we'll sometimes put herbs and adaptogens and things like that in there to make them so that you just take one of these energy bombs and boom, not these fat bombs that people are talking about where they take like tablespoons of oil and mix it together with something. No, this is whole food, and that whole food can give you a boost unless you're sensitive to chocolate. But the coconut that we have in there is filled with MCT, which is a medium chain triglyceride, which is very supportive of your body making ketones. And one of our free books we gave you in the series leading up to this was all about that. So these are the kinds of things you do. And finally, some omega-3s. And I usually like to take a jar of water, put some chia seeds in it, shake it up, add some lemon essential oil, lemon juice, and boom, we have this pick-me-up. So these are ways to get you pick-me-ups rather than coffee. Much better, much healthier for you than the afternoon cup of coffee and donut to get the energy. Yeah, it gives you some temporary energy. This feeds you long-term. So these are amazing ways to get quick action. So a lot of people ask me, like that I say this problem could be happening for decades and you don't know it until sometimes it's too late. And like my parents, they have a heart attack. They want to know, how do I know if I'm out of balance and I need to be addressing this right now? Well, It's very easy to do in a number of ways. You want to be in that balanced state. The best way is to measure. I highly recommend that everyone owns a blood glucose meter. In fact, you should be learning how to use it on other people besides yourself. Make sure that you have a separate Lansing device, right, for each person, which is inexpensive. You can use the same meter. But you want to be able to test people if they're not feeling well. If they start to have a fever or cough, cold, that's not getting better, right? You give them vitamin C, they usually get better. What's going on? One of our practitioners had a very serious event happen with her daughter, her 20-year-old daughter. She'd been having this chronic kind of flu-like symptoms and exhaustion for a few months. And she was overseas in a work study for college. And when she came back and she was still feeling this way, we took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, it's probably a flu, just, rest and drink lots of liquids, the typical things they say. It wasn't the flu. She was in diabetic ketoacidosis. She was heading towards that. And the way they found out is she couldn't wake up her daughter in the morning and rushed her to the hospital, to the ER. Her blood sugar was 600. It didn't get to be 600 overnight. It had been creeping up. Her hemoglobin A1C was 14, which means over the last 3 months, her average blood glucose was in the 400s. So this was something that was happening over the course of these months. And what if the first time she felt poorly, she knew to test her blood sugar, or she went to a doctor who was educated and knew to test her blood sugar? They would have prevented her almost dying in the ER. She had to have kidney dialysis. She was in coma for a long time, like a week. She was in the hospital for weeks. You don't want this to happen to you or someone you love. So get a glucose meter, learn how to test it, get over the fact that it pricks your finger a little bit. It's very small. If you've ever given birth to a child, don't tell me you can't prick your finger and take your blood glucose, because it's a lot less than that. If you've ever done any hard labor, a carpenter, or you've done house labor where you banged your hand with a hammer, it's way less than that. So we need to get over the fear of testing our own blood sugar and empower you to test it. This particular one I'm showing you here is Keto Mojo. It's my favorite one these days. In our Sweet Spot program, we have a chart that I painstakingly researched, at least a dozen of them. Some of them ended up in the trash, and I made a chart that showed you which ones were reliable. But you can go to Walmart if you don't have a moral objection to that. You can go to Walmart and get a meter, and they're like $15. So there's a lot of ways to do it. It's the learning how to test properly and learning how to see what's going on and then knowing what to shift. But every house should have it, just like a thermometer. You have a fever, stick the thermometer in, stick out your finger, test the sugar, and that's what you should be doing. Just in case, on the off chance that it is this imbalance. Annette never knew that was happening. And she started researching it and found that happens to quite a number of people, a percentage of people that they don't know. So meters they're life-saving. They're totally, totally life-saving. Other ways for you to know: you have a little extra belly fat, even though you're thin everywhere else. That's a sign that you might be out of balance, that your insulin and glucose levels and cortisol increases it. You're tired all the time and you need to have your coffee to wake you up or to stay awake throughout the day. You have cravings for sugar, cravings for starches, and you're just, even after you've eaten a meal, you just want something. You want a cracker, you want a cookie, you want ice cream after a big meal because you're not getting satisfied. That's a sign that this insulin blood sugar is out of regulation. If you are, if you're falling asleep at work in the middle of the day, that 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock afternoon slump, people always say that to me. Oh, that typical afternoon slump. I'm like, I don't get an afternoon slump. People who are healthy and balanced don't get an afternoon slump. I used to have a big cup of tea. I never drank coffee before I went home from work, and I had like an hour drive home from work. I'd have to do that before I left, or a Diet Pepsi to have the caffeine to keep me awake, or I would be falling asleep in that late afternoon. It's very common. It's not normal. So if you have these things, common symptoms, but they're not normal, it's a clue and it's a sign. The brain fog is a clue. Where did I leave my keys? What was I going to say? All of those things are signs that there may be an imbalance. And that irritability, if you miss a meal, like a newborn baby, they don't have any facilities other than crying. You do. And if you're out of balance because it's been 2 hours since your last meal and you're in the refrigerator grabbing, or you grab the dip and the chips instead of grabbing for some good, wholesome, healthy food that's going to put you back in balance. These are all signs that you may be out of balance. I mean, obviously the blood sugar meter is clear cut, right? You're out of balance. But these are signs that are just really tip of the iceberg. And what really might be happening inside is damage to your blood vessels, elevated cholesterol, and so many other serious things, and cancers. And that's not what you want, right? I don't want that. I don't think you want that. These are tip of the iceberg symptoms. So if not, if you have any of these symptoms, get the meter and test. Blood sugars over 100 cause damage. So people are running around with diabetes and the doctor says, oh yeah, you're good because you're keeping your blood sugar fasting at 100 and your after meals at 140, you're good. No, every time it goes over 100, the beta cells in the pancreas are getting damaged. Those are the cells that make the insulin. And eventually you can turn into a type 1, an adult onset type 1 diabetic, if your pancreas can't make insulin anymore. And we hear that a lot, type 2 diabetics that end up on insulin. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We also are making changes to like the kidneys and the vasculature and the eyes. Diabetic retinopathy is a serious complication of diabetes, and not just diabetics get diabetic retinopathy. It happens on the road to diabetes. On that 30-year journey I was showing you, before any doctors detect that you have an imbalance, you can detect it when you get that meter and you learn how to test. So the studies show that it happens at pre-diabetic levels. That 60% of the people had a fasting glucose that was below 126, which was the criteria at that point for diagnosing diabetes. So 60% of people with diabetic retinopathy didn't even have diabetes diagnosed yet, but they were on the road to it. A big percentage, up to 13%, had glucose below 100. How many of you are out there with that, with your glucose in the 90s? It's damaging your retinas. And what happens is these little, see these red spots that you don't see on this side? This is an eyeball with the retinopathy. Only 1 in 10 had abnormal post-meal blood sugars the way that the doctors told them at the 2-hour mark. But a lot more you're going to find have this imbalance. We had a guy who joined a program a few years back, and he had been to his doctor. He'd been struggling with peripheral neuropathy. And he was like, is this diabetic peripheral neuropathy? And the doctor said, no, you're not diabetic. Maybe it's B12, take some B12. Well, when he heard about a test called hemoglobin A1C, which we told you about earlier, he got that tested at a local health fair, and it was his A1C was 10. His fasting blood glucose was in the 90s, so the doctor said you were fine. His hemoglobin A1C was 10, which means that he was averaging over 200 in his blood sugar, which means his peak that we talked about earlier was super high, which means that had he been testing the way I was teaching, he would have detected this. Long story short, he did detect it. He did change his diet. He's got his A1C down to 5.2, but he's got these retinopathies, and we're praying and hoping that they are reversible, right? This is what can happen if you don't take care of this early on. And this is what can happen. And this is what I believe happened to my parents. They had developed plaque. Nobody was testing them for blood sugar imbalance. Nobody was looking at them. And I have no idea what their fasting blood glucoses were, but they'd been to doctors, and the doctors gave them the, hey, okay, you're okay. This was what was happening with them. Alzheimer's is another condition that you're leading towards, especially if you have some brain fog or memory issues right now. They're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, or insulin resistance in the brain, and finding that the glucose dysregulation is causing Alzheimer's. There's an enzyme that every time you make insulin, it has to get degraded, happens in the body for everything. So the insulin degrading enzyme is also the same enzyme that helps to break down plaques in the brain that they're attributing to Alzheimer's disease. So if you are having some memory lapses, if you have these blood sugar, you've got to test it. You've got to test it, got to test it, got to test it, got to learn to test. Alzheimer's is really, it's one of those diseases that doesn't necessarily kill you, but it kind of makes you wish you were not there because you can't remember anything. You can't even remember how to finish a sentence. And then, of course, there's the complications of diabetes, right? And all those things that I said before, the peripheral neuropathies, the kidney problems, the retinopathies, all of these are happening along the way, not just when the doctor says, hey, your blood sugar is high enough to say diabetes. Now we can put you on drugs. Don't get to that point. And if you're already at that point, no worries. We can help you to get things in balance. And we've seen diabetics turn their numbers around within a couple of weeks. So don't be disheartened if you're already there and saying, oh no, it's too late for me. It's not too late for you. And again, anything I'm saying here, it's not medical advice. I'm just telling you how to detect things in your own body. If you are under the care of a doctor, if you are on any medications, especially blood sugar lowering and blood pressure lowering, let the doctor know that you're going to be doing this, that you're going to be working on yourself, because those numbers go down very quickly. And if you're on meds, the doctor has to help you go low on those meds. So I've talked about all of these things that you could be doing that maybe what you could be doing wrong. I talked about how to measure and how to detect if you have a blood sugar imbalance. I want to talk just a second about why is blood sugar so critical to everything else. We need to get balanced blood sugar in order to be healthy, period. End of discussion. My first video in the series was called The Queen of Hormones. I go into a lot of depth on it there. Suffice it to say, the blood sugar controls everything. All your cells need access to the sugar from the food you eat. And if they don't get it, then they are not going to be able to function properly. So it affects your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your eyes, everything, your sex hormones, all your hormones. Insulin affects the other hormones. When you go around with high levels of insulin and high levels of blood sugar, you're damaging your other hormones. So if you have a thyroid issue, if you have menopause symptoms, anything at all like that, you're going to get into trouble if you don't get this under control. So much importance based on getting yourself into your sweet spot. And I want to tell you about a program that we put together to support you in doing that. I'll take a few minutes to do that. I'll give you the opportunity to join us. And then whether you join us or not, I want you to stay for the rest of the presentation, because I'm going to go into some more details on how do you put together a plant-based ketogenic diet? How do you determine the fats? How does this affect you if you have gallbladder problems or have had your gallbladder removed? I want to help you with all of that, and then talk a little bit about leaky gut and thyroid. So we'll do all that, and then we'll close. Map it all out, and then map out and design exactly what you're going to eat and how you're going to exercise based on those findings. And then you're going to do it for 30 days. We're going to give you the training to be able to do the assessments. We're going to give you the support. Then we're going to take you through the 30 days and give you everything you need. And then we're going to help you. Now what? Now what do I do? So what's included in this program is an online portal that you can access from anywhere, a laptop, a mainframe, a tablet, a phone, plus books and checklists and everything you need from that physical perspective. The program is online. So if you don't have a computer and you're not willing to log into a website, this isn't the program for you. I'm just going to tell you right out front. Okay. If you want the support that you need and you are not computer savvy, let us know. We can put a coach that's certified in insulin resistance that I've trained that can guide you through step by step to help you get back on track. So you don't have to be, but you can't take advantage of this group program and this amazing offer that we put together, because there's so much going on right now in the world, and because, maybe finances are tight, and we're trying to isolate this program down to something that you can do right now. And how does that affect your immune system? We need strong immune system right now, right? Blood sugar imbalances kill the immune system. Absolutely kill the immune system. Blood sugars over 120 thwart the ability of the white blood cells to pull in vitamin C and to use the vitamin C to support and be healthier and stronger. So it's super, super important. So you get a handbook, you get step-by-step instructions, you get videos, you get audios, whatever your best learning style is, you can learn. We also are giving you a meal planner, a 30-day meal planner. A lot of people don't use the meal planner per se, but they mix and they match, right? I'm not the type that wants somebody to tell me exactly what to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but some of you are. So whatever you are, you can use our 30 days as an exact, or you can use it as guidelines, and you'll use it along with the 250-page recipe guide that comes with it in PDF form. People ask if these are available as a print version, and once you get into the site, you can see where you can order them. We're in the process of updating them for this new version, so we may not have those ready for another week or two. What else? And then we have assessments that you can fill out in the comfort of your own home without having to go out and get testing. If you can't get testing, no worries. If you live in a country where doctors don't test and they don't allow you to test, no worries. You can still do these assessments, paper and pen, with symptom analysis and nutritional analysis, and get some ideas in the first place where you are, and then you can test throughout. So no worries if you can't. The testing is always helpful because you know where you're starting, and we'll teach you about the testing and where to get it. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you so far, there's going to be a link that our team is going to put up, and you can just click it. And you can also just type in startsweetspot.com, startsweetspot.com. So what else? Well, you're going to get 1 year access to the Sweet Spot exclusive members only website, so you can access it anytime you want over that year. You're going to get weekly group calls for 10 weeks in a row. You're going to be on the phone with me specifically for this program, and we're going to be answering your questions and taking you through week by week what's on tap for this week. So we're making it really simple. For those of you who've done the program before, you'll see that it's easier to get through because it's going to be set up step by step. And if you did the program last year, we're going to send you a coupon to get a discount off of it, doing it again this year. And that should go out this afternoon. And all your calls are recorded. So if you miss a call, you can always type in a question, and we'll give you an ability to do that and listen to it later. And we have a community, a Facebook community for those who like Facebook. For those who don't, you're not going to miss, any of the core program. All of the other stuff is done. Like my calls are on a Zoom platform where we can see each other, we can talk to each other, and you get my support that way. But it is an additional extra. If you're a Facebook person, you have a Facebook community, and people are active there, and they share recipes. And we'll actually have one of our team members go in there and do a live every week, and she's going to be going through the program with you. She's one of our coaches. And there's a lot more inside. I can't tell you everything. I don't want to spend an hour here, but there's just so much. We're all here to support you. We're here to support you. So you might be wondering, this sounds expensive and I don't think I can afford this, but you're going to be surprised. If you were to go away to a retreat center, like Gabriel Cousins has one out he has a end diabetes program. It's a 3-week program. It's $12,000 to go there for 3 weeks, and you don't get the ongoing support for the rest of the year. With this, it's not anywhere near $10,000. It's on the website, $997. That's, if you were to go to our website 2 or 3 days ago, you would see that it's $997 on the website, and people have done that, and they've done it without getting all the extra support. But once a year, we do a launch, and we offer the live support calls, and we offer it for $497, which is half of what you'd normally pay for it on the website. However, because we're in the times we're in right now, and because we want to give this access to this to more people, we are going to make it super affordable, and we've cut the price to $297. I will tell you, we've never done it at this investment before. We may never do it at this investment again. We just have to see how it goes. And it comes down to less than $5 a day, like a little over $4 a day to do this program. And think about what you might be spending $4 or $5 a day on now, right? A cup of coffee at Starbucks, a wrap at the local store, whatever it might be. There's a lot that you can be using towards this. So I highly recommend that you go to startsweetspot.com and let us support you on this. If you've been dealing with these symptoms for a long time, for more than 6 months to a year, for years, and you keep saying, yeah, I'll get it under control. Yeah, I'll get it under control. Now's the time to do it. You might also be thinking that, oh no, I'm not a good person to do this. I self-sabotage. I've tried programs before. It's not going to work for me. We thought of that too. We put in a bonus called Stopping Self-Sabotage, how to stay motivated and inspired to stay on your diet to stay on track even when life gets in the way. So it's going to be a live session. It'll be me, and I'm going to invite some colleagues who are specialized in this. And we're going to help you put a strategy in place to be successful. We're going to do this about 2 weeks into the program. So give you a chance to get started. And then we're going to bring this in so that the self-sabotage, we find that sometimes that's when the self-sabotage kicks in. So we're going to circumvent the self-sabotage. We also know that a lot of people say, well, I can't do something. I'm traveling. I'm going to restaurants. I eat out a lot. I do car trips, whatever it might be. You can stay with it. I travel more than anybody, more than most people I know. And I stick with my diet 100%. And I've developed strategies to keep me there over and over again on the road. And I take pictures, and you've seen posted on Facebook if you've been on my Facebook before, but this is going to give you a guidebook, an ebook that contains all of my strategies for staying healthy in the real world, eating out, eating at friends' houses, family houses, traveling by plane and by car. And this bonus, the other bonus is if you go to startsweetspot.com, you're going to see on that page, this one isn't there yet because we just decided to add it. It's called Your Genes, Your Diet, and Your Immune System. It's a class that we do once a year in July online, 2 full days of online instruction and interaction and recipe demonstrations and everything you need to put some of this stuff into place. So we did this. It'll be our 3rd year in a row. And each year it's a slightly different theme. The first year it was your genes, your diet, and your health. Then it was your genes, your diet, and your hormones. And this year it's your genes, your diet, and your immune system. And honestly, this was planned before all this crazy immune system stuff. So it's perfectly suited for helping you to get your immune system in tip-top shape. And what we're going to do is teach you about genes and how to look at for your genes and your genetic tendencies so you can create a plan, a diet plan, an herb plan, know what to avoid, what to eat to satisfy and help you to overcome whatever imbalances you have in your genes. So I highly recommend it. When we offered this, it was a $197 price tag. And this year it's going to be a base ticket and a VIP ticket. The VIP ticket will include the videos, and we're going to give you the VIP ticket. So you're going to come to that, and then you'll have the videos for a lifetime on your membership site. So let me just summarize your bonuses. You've got the stopping self-sabotage, staying healthy in the real world, your genes, your diet, and your immune system 2-day, all day. It's just like you're going to a seminar, but you don't have to get out of your pajamas, and you don't have to stand in line at the restaurant in the bathroom on breaks. You do that. We'll have breaks throughout the day. It'll have a lunch break. It'll be laid out just like it's a live session, and you get to do it at home. And all of that together, the total of those bonuses is $441. And that is not even what we're asking you to invest right now, which is $297. So I think that, it's super important. It's super important to get support. For everything I've ever done in my life where I'm making a radical change, I've gotten support. And the support makes a difference. The guidance makes a difference. Knowing what to do and how it's bouncing off of you and having people to ask questions makes all the difference in the world. I highly recommend that you go to startsweetspot.com. A couple more things, and then we'll move on to the diet piece and really addressing some of those specific diet concerns. I want to let you know that when you get to the page, you're going to see this thing called the Keto Assist Supplement Guide. And it's not explained there, and I wanted to explain it here. People ask me all the time, well, what supplements do you recommend? What brands do you recommend? Where can I get these things? And so we created a book, and the book is going to have all of these metabolism balancing supplements and foods like protein powders and green powders, etc. So it's basically a resource guide, and we'll be keeping that up to date and updating that as things change. So you'll get access to that for just $19.95. It's an ebook. So if we change it, you'll be able to download a new one. So you go to startsweetspot.com, and right below where the somewhere above and somewhere in the middle of the page on the right, you're going to see this best spot. And all you have to do is check it. This has got to be a high priority for you. You may be thinking, oh, this is not a good time. I'm going to wait till next week. I'm going to do it next year. It may be too late by then. There can be irreparable damage that happens between now and the time that you do it. With my family, I wish they'd made it a priority. This is a family picture, my last family picture before my mom and dad died. This was taken in, what was it? It was about 2 or 3 years before my mom and dad died. My mom died and then my dad two years later. So my mom was probably around 53 in this picture and dad was probably 59. All right. This is the last picture. They didn't know that they had this brewing until they died suddenly of a heart attack. They did not know. My little sister, Debbie, has Down syndrome. She was just 14 when mom died and 16 when dad died. She was left without parents and nobody, not a parent to advocate for her, to get her the services and what she needed. And my sister, Kathy, took over for her. Unfortunately, about 15 years later, Kathy was diagnosed with lymphoma. And at the age of 44, she died too. So poor Debbie was left alone. So it's not just about you. It's not just about you. It's about the people that you love and the people that you left behind. And I remember in my, anger and grief when my mom died, just yelling at my sisters and saying, you guys got to stop eating this crap and stop smoking and don't hang around with people who smoke. I don't want to lose you too, but do you want your kids to go through the suffering that you're going through right now? None of us wants that for our loved ones. So I recommend that you do this. If they had done the things I'm teaching them, would they still be alive? Of course, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling they would be. I have a feeling they would be. So every choice matters. I made different choices. I decided 35 years ago to make choices differently. And this is me. This is a couple of months ago in Hawaii. And this is about a year and a half ago in Mexico at my favorite place, the beach, right? I made different choices. And in my almost 64, I feel like I'm in my 20s and I feel better than I did when I was in my 20s. Here's someone that took decisive action, Beatrice. She joined us for the very first program. It was called Before Be Gone. She was 110 pounds overweight. She was on a myriad of medications, had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And this was her a year later. She went on to lose 110 pounds, and this is her this year. And she's 75 years old. She still follows the program. She knows if she gets off track, how to get back on track. She lost 110 pounds. She got off our thyroid medication. They proclaimed that she no longer had Hashimoto's after having been diagnosed 50 years before. She went off all of her medication, and she's healthy and happy. And this is Jan, who looked like this in her 40s and then looked like this in her 50s, right? She was, after her sweet spot, her first sweet spot, she went on and her daughter convinced her to join like a bodybuilding contest, which she did. And she won first prize in her age group. And Jan went on to study in our practitioner training. She became our first certified nutritional endocrinology practitioner. And now she has a full-time job teaching yoga, running a yoga program at a school and doing health coaching. So all of this can happen. Amazing things can happen and you don't know what your future is. So for the $297 investment today, it's well worth it. And I encourage you to go to startsweetspot.com. Okay, take a breath. We're going to talk about now how you can make different choices and what choices you can make to get yourself in that sweet spot. Keep yourself in that sweet spot and know when something's right or wrong for you. So what I wanted to share was, I just found this quote and I just added this recently. This is a Woody Allen quote. You can live to be 100 if you give up all the things that make you want to live to be 100. And I just want to say, BS. BS. You don't have to give up anything. And if your life is such that you don't have anything else that brings you joy and makes you want to live longer other than eating garbage food, there's something else wrong there and you need to take action. When you make choices towards the comfort foods on the left-hand side, you're making a choice towards not feeling good, towards developing these diseases we've been talking about and not getting your energy back. When you make choices on the right, that's when your health soars. Now, it doesn't have to be quote unquote boring, like what you're seeing there, just raw vegetables and fruit. It can be very exciting. These are the kinds of things that you can enjoy other than food as you age. Wouldn't you want to be happy and walking in the forest with your loved one at age 100? Wouldn't you like to be hanging out with your friends and laughing at age 100? Those are the choices you get to make. And it's not an all or nothing proposition. So let's look at my version of the ketogenic diet, the plant-powered ketogenic diet. The benefits of keto are numerous, as we've outlined, but the downsides are serious as well. So what if you could eat all of these beautiful veggies and whole food plant-based fats like avocado and coconut and seeds and nuts and olives, leave off the oil. I'm not a big fan of oil. Occasional little bit is fine, but I couldn't find a picture without the oil in it, so I left it in there. But the kind of fat and the amount of fat matters. I had someone wrote in and said that her doctor wanted her husband on a low-fat diet and get his cholesterol down to under 50 because he had heart disease. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. He wanted to get rid of all the fat in their diet. That's not healthy either. Your body needs fat. You need fat to make healthy cell membranes. You need fat to make the sheaths around your nerves. You need fat for your brain. You need fat for your hormones. And cholesterol under 50 has not been shown to be helpful at all. It can lead to hormonal imbalances. You can't make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone if your cholesterol is under 100. Doesn't mean you can't get off of cholesterol in your diet. But if you get rid of all the fat, your body can't make the cholesterol. And cholesterol is actually needed by the body. It's not a mistake of nature that God said, let me put this stuff in there. I don't know what it's for, but someday it'll cause heart attacks. No, it has a purpose, and it's an anti-inflammatory. It's out of control these days. So we have to get our fats in balance, our omega-3s and 6s. And when you get into Sweet Spot, you'll see that there's a chart that we put together in its Excel sheet. You can put in your fats and it'll tell you your balance and help you stay in balance. Omega-6s in general tend to be inflammatory. Omega-3s, anti-inflammatory, but we need a balance of both, right? If you cut your hand and you're bleeding, you need those inflammatory fats to send the troops to the area to heal it. We need it, but you also need the firefighters in the omega-3s to put it out. So we need balance. So what about gallbladder? So the butter bacon version of keto is about 80% fat. And we don't need to be that high in fat. Most of the fat that they say to do is like from oil and butter and bacon and cheese and meat and all that. But we don't need that much fat to get into ketosis for the most part, which is where the measure comes in. Find out what you need. I eat mostly plants. Mostly vegetables. I eat lots and lots of vegetables. I eat fair amounts of good whole food plant-based fats, like coconut yogurt and coconut shreds on things and avocados and olives and nuts and seeds and tons of vegetables. And I'm able to stay in ketosis most of the time. The only time I go out of ketosis is when I eat too late at night and I eat too much, regardless of what it is, if I eat too much. If you've got a gallbladder problem, you've got to find your sweet spot of the amount of fat you can eat. It doesn't mean zero fat because you can't survive on zero fat. It means that you need to find that balance of fat that your body tolerates, that you don't get, doubling over pain if you're missing your gallbladder. The other thing about the gallbladder is there are things you can do. There are supplements you can take to support your body in moving the bile from the liver and into the gut where it belongs. So it's really important that you know. But yes, this program can be done. Not a butter bacon keto plan. I would not recommend a butter bacon keto plan for somebody without a gallbladder or with gallstones. Not a good choice. So the other thing you want to balance is carbohydrates. We talked about fat. We talked about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are some good carbohydrates, some not so good, same as with fat. Sugar's a carbohydrate and not so good for your body. It drains you of your B vitamins. Apples, it could be a great carbohydrate food for somebody who tolerates it without jumping up their sugar, but it might not be so good for somebody who doesn't. And what we learn to do is eat the carbohydrates with greens so that it keeps the sugar in balance. You see? So it's not an all or nothing proposition. Yes, we should get rid of all the processed carbohydrates. Yes, we should get rid of the white flour and the sugar and all that. But there's carbohydrates that are good, and we have to use your measurement to find out. And it doesn't mean you're on a boring diet. It doesn't mean that all you get to eat is salads. These are some of the things I eat. I make pizza with a cauliflower chia Brazil nut crust, a cheese made out of cashews and macadamia nuts, and lots of veggies. I make this is over here is manicotti, which is an Italian food. We usually eat it on Christmas Eve. It's traditional in my family. Those crepes are typically made with white flour, and I think there's egg in there. We made them with coconut wraps. And inside of it is a cashew macadamia cheese. You could use pine nuts. You can use any nut you want, with greens in there, and then a nice fresh tomato sauce. And then over here, which maybe you don't see as well, but over here in this corner is mashed potatoes made with cauliflower. And I served them at Thanksgiving at my in-laws' house, and everybody loved them. So you don't have to give up your favorite foods. And what about dessert? I told you don't have to give up chocolate. As long as you don't have an allergy to it, as long as it doesn't, rev you up, get a headache from it, you can eat chocolate, and you can still be on this plan and stay in your sweet spot and turn your health into amazing, unstoppable energy. So key lime pie, cheesecake, these are cannolis. These are chocolates made with coconut and cacao, and this particular one has a little bit of strawberry in the coconut to make it red. And I was inspired to make these from one of our students who played with it and posted in the Facebook group. And then these are just some plain old chocolates that I made. None of them are sweetened with sugar. They're all sweetened with something like Chinese lohan or stevia. And you can make amazing things, amazing foods. So it's not about deprivation. And as far as protein, it's again finding that right amount of protein for you. Finding that right amount of protein. We don't want 150 grams of protein a day. It causes kidney stress. We want to find the right amount of protein for you. So I want to talk a little bit about thyroid. I mentioned Beatrice earlier, who had Hashimoto's, and it reversed by going on this sweet spot diet. I've had that happen a few times. I'm going to show you another picture of somebody who that happened to. A lot of people, they go off their thyroid medication with the help of their doctor when they get their blood sugar balanced. And there's lots of studies that the impact of the influence of insulin, high levels of insulin, can impact the conversion of the thyroid hormones. It can impact the receptors for the thyroid hormones. So you've got to get your blood sugar in balance to get your thyroid in balance. Other questions that kept coming in were things about food allergies. If you have food allergies, most likely you have a leaky gut. Leaky gut, hyperpermeability of your gut and the small intestine. It allows these larger molecules to pass through and stimulate the immune system. In the Sweet Spot program, we put people on an elimination diet. Gluten, dairy, corn, soy, eggs, peanuts are eliminated along with the sugar and the sugar-containing products. And we see if there's anything else that you have a problem with, you take that out too. And then we'll show you how you can put it back in and test after the 30-day metabolic reset. You test the foods you've removed to see which ones you can add back. And it's surprising how much you can add back. And then let me talk briefly about fasting. I said I incorporate fasting in my regime. I try to do a 5-day fast every month. Last year I made it about 10 months. This year I've only had one so far. So I'm due for another 5-day fast, but I like to do them periodically to cleanse. Not everybody can do 5-day fasts, but everybody can do a 12-hour fast. So a 12-hour fast from your last meal to your first. That's the first starting point. Start that now. You don't need to eat right before bed. It's going to throw off your blood sugars the next day. It's going to interfere with your sleep, and it's not a good idea. So that 12-hour fast from dinner to breakfast, finish your dinner at whatever, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then go to bed at 10 or 11. And then you start again eating in the morning. 12 hours later, not that hard to do. You might be at a point where it's hard to do, so you start to do that gradually. But it's very, very important to help with the blood sugar levels, to help lower the insulin and the blood sugar and raise up growth hormone and leptin levels, balance out. So really important stuff. So what's the key to living in your sweet spot? It's knowing what it is, learning how to test for it, finding your sweet spot, and then doing a 30-day metabolic reset, balancing out these lifestyle factors, and then figuring out what you have to do to keep in your sweet spot. What foods can you introduce again? What foods do you have to eliminate? What foods can you combine? How often do you have to exercise? And then staying with that and getting a good support. So I'm going to just leave you with making a choice. Make a choice. Which do you want to do? Do you want to just do nothing and cross your fingers and hope for the best? Do you want to say, I'll wait and I'll do that program with Dr. Rita Marie in a year and take the chances of things deteriorating more in that year? Do you want to read every book that there is and get a lot of different answers and a lot of confusion and still not know what's best for you, because these all books have a piece of the truth. I'm not saying I have the truth. You have the truth in here, and we're going to help you to bring it out and understand how to do it. There's a lot to learn. There's so much to learn. And even if you were to learn it all, if you don't take action, it doesn't do any good. So you've got to be able to take what you learn and put it into action. A lot of people are compulsive learners. I'm going to learn this, I'm going to learn that, and you're stuck in analysis paralysis. You need to take action, even action in the slightly wrong direction, where that you could course correct is better than no action at all. And here's a picture of Alan, who took action. He heard about the sweet spot and he heard about the metabolic reset, and he started doing it. And after years of being stuck at the same weight, plateaued, and not being able to do anything with his weight, he dropped 50 pounds inside of 3 or 4 months. And his sex drive came back, and he got off of his thyroid medication. Doctor said, you don't need this anymore, and took him off. And he is maintaining it without the thyroid medication. So if he can do it, you can do it, right? We can all do it. We have that inner healer we talked about at the beginning. We have an inner healer inside of us, and it just needs us to get out of its way. So get support in doing the 30-day metabolic reset. It's life-changing. We can take you on that journey with us. Just a summary of what's involved. It's an 8-week online training. We're going to teach you before the metabolic reset how to figure out your sweet spot, how to eliminate the things that take you out of your sweet spot, and then take you through a guided 30-day process. You're going to get menu planners and recipes and assessments to fill out. You'll get access for a year to the membership site. You'll get access to our weekly support calls. This is something we only offer once a year. So if you don't get on now, you're going to have to wait a whole year. And like I said, anything can happen in that year. Now is the time to shore up your immune system. Now is the time to get your health better, so you can weather the storm. So those weekly support calls with me personally, you're going to get recordings of all those calls. You're going to get the community on Facebook if you like Facebook, and if you don't, just don't do it, right? And then startsweetspot.com. I'll summarize the bonuses for you. We've got the Stopping Self-Sabotage workshop. We've got the Staying Healthy in the Real World ebook. We've got the Your Genes, Your Diet, and Your Immune System 2-day live online workshop. You get a VIP ticket with all the recordings. And I encourage you to really think about yourself and put yourself first. The Keto Assist supplement guide, check the box when you get there. You'll get access to my guide that I put together of all of the supplements that we recommend, anything that's recommended in the program, anything that we use, like green powders and all that. It's all in that booklet, and you'll be able to get that and get access to that for an extra $19.95. It's a high priority. It is not something you should be putting off. Put your health first. $297 for the whole thing. And I look forward to meeting you on the inside. And if you're on the fence and you're not sure, there are other people who've been on the fence and not sure, like Claudia, who joined us a couple of years ago. And she thought, I'm healthy. Why do I need this? And then the more she learned about it, the more she decided that, well, maybe this will help me with the extra muffin top, and maybe it'll help me with the blood pressure. So she joined. And she was able to lose the extra weight, no more muffin top. She looks phenomenal. She has energy unstoppable. And she has her own online program teaching you how to restore your natural vision. And she's not sorry that she did it. She's very happy that she did it. In fact, she's one of the people who said to me, you're crazy for offering it at such a low investment. You should raise the price. Like, I really want to help a lot of people. So for now, at least, as long as I can afford to do it at this price, I'm going to afford to do it at this price. So make your choice. Which side are you going to go on? Are you going to get old the way that society tells you're going to get old and need a cane and a walker and be miserable and on 15 medications? Or are you going to be like these people who I shared with you a lot about in the 5th video, who are all 80, she's 85. These guys are over 100, and these guys are in their 90s, and they still do their stuff. This is what they do. And all of them, when I looked up, what do they do? What is their diet like? What's their secret to success? Having fun, low stress, good diet, and keeping active. Haha, sounds like the Sweet Spot program, doesn't it? So if you want to be like my family and not pay attention to this, you might not make it to your next Christmas, to your next Easter, to your next birthday, whatever. This is important. And I just want you, it was heartbreaking to lose my parents. I don't want this to happen to you. Get the boulders out of the way. Get the boulders out of the way. Learn how to test. Know your numbers. Know your numbers so that you can look out on the vista of life and join us. Know your numbers. Know your numbers. Know your numbers. It just may save your life. I'm here to support you with all my heart and soul. I love watching transformations. I love helping people from where they go, from where they are to where they need to be, where they deserve to be, to living life to the fullest and it's your full capacity. So I encourage you to join us for the Sweet Spot, startsweetspot.com. What I want to leave you with is this. You get to make choices every single day of your life. You get to make choices about what you eat, how you breathe, what you think, what you watch, who you hang out with. And those choices ultimately affect your health in many ways. Like even Claudia points out to me, in terms of the way I look down like that to look at the screen. It's just because of the angles and all that. But there's choices I make about, how far away from my computer screen I am, about 3.5 feet away from my computer screen at all. By the way, Claudia, I never used to be able to read it that far. So things are definitely working better. So you basically make choices, and your choices control your destiny. And I know, like, if I had sat my mom and dad down, or her doctor, because she wouldn't listen to me, I was just her daughter. But if her doctor had sat her down and said, look, Mary, if you don't make these changes, you're going to just die suddenly of a heart attack at age 56. If you make these changes, you're going to live a long, healthy life. Would she have made the changes? Who thinks she would have made those changes? I think she would. Same with my dad, same with my sister. But everybody's kind of wishy-washy about it. There was an interview that was happening on TV a couple of weeks ago, and this talk show host was asking this doctor, but don't you think, people should be told to stop eating sugar and eat more vegetables? And she was like, well, that could be helpful. He goes, but don't you think that they should stop sugar? Well, maybe they could cut down a little. He couldn't get her to admit, right, that sugar had anything to do with the immune system. And all of these misconceptions are there. The doctors get their education from research that's funded by pharmaceutical companies in some cases, or food companies in some cases. So we need to take charge of our own health. And the way we do it is to educate yourself about how this body works, about how you can get it in optimal range, what you should eat, how you should eat. But it's not a perfect diet for everybody. You need to be able to, go in with the ebb and flow and make the right diet for you. And it does take some back and forth. And I believe that most healing happens in community, right? When you're trying to do something alone and nobody on your block and nobody in your family understands you, and you don't have a community outlet, it's kind of hard and frustrating, and it's easy to fall back. Fortunately, I'm a stubborn soul, and I didn't fall back when I didn't have that community. But I will tell you right now, with the internet, with all the groups I lead, with people that I get to support and I get to interact with who are like-minded, it makes it so much easier for me to stick with this. And that's the same that I hear from our folks. Knowing that there's other people doing this, knowing that they're not alone, knowing that there's me to come to for support. And typically you can't get in to see me. I don't have private. I don't just say, oh, you want to make an appointment with Dr. Rita Marie? Here, let me make you an appointment. That doesn't happen. I don't have the time for it. The only people I do this with and work with and help are people who are already in one of our programs, right? So, unless you came up and handed me a check for $100,000, no, I can be bought a lot lower than that. But I'm saying it's way beyond the go to the doctor and spend $300 to $500 on a visit, because I don't have the time for that. I choose to do this in a larger group because I want to change the world, right? And I'm here for you. And those of you who've been through the program before know that I answer the questions. I'm there. I put it out there, and my heart is in it, and I really care about you. So I'm much love for you. Thank you so, so much for being here.